Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dogs and cats, children, as well as babies, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast. I am your host, Deven, Director of Baseball Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy. This is Driveline Academy podcast, the world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast with the fastest intro ever of all time. Did we just PR? I think we just PR'd. Because I'm in the room by myself, I'm just going to clap. You guys are clapping along at home, right? Thanks, we're back. We're back. Despite what everybody said, we're back. Got a lot of stuff to cover. Professional baseball is done, and I promise you there are a bunch of things that we need to talk about in the World Series in order to directly, I think, give us some signal about the way that we coach kids, some things that will be valuable for us to consider, both as coaches and also how we want players to approach the game. But before we get into that, first-time listeners might not know this, but long-time listeners definitely do. We got housekeeping to do, so we're going to keep housekeeping. I don't know. I was promised that it's going to be brief and then blathering for too long, but we're just going to get into it. AxeBat.com, but DL20. We get you 20% off at AxeBat.com. To say that slower, for anybody that isn't used to it, AxeBat.com, AXEBAT.com. And if you use code D as in diner, L as in legume, Diner Legume 20, DL20, as in Driveline 20, will get you 20% off from our good friends over at AxeBat.com. So go talk to Dane and the guys. They got game bats, they got training bats, they got all the stuff that you would want. If you're trying to teach a kid how to hit, go to AxeBat.com, use code DL20, get you 20% off. Beyond that, we've got some Driveline stuff to promote. We got new training options. And we haven't really talked about this publicly. I did some ad reads that are going to be coming out relatively soon. But podcast family, you guys, as per usual, get the most frequent news and updates about this stuff because you're getting it from me. So let's talk about it. Youth assessments, or the youth snapshot is now called the youth assessment. It's the same basic thing. And like one of the ad reads that I did this morning is kind of talking about this idea that like you've got a kid and that kid loves baseball a lot. And you as the parent are probably in the same boat that I was and to a degree still am in relative to my own kids, which is like, I know that they're good, right? And I know that they're good relative to what they see locally, but like I have this existential question of like, well, how good are they? And what do they really need to be working on, right? And as a youth baseball coach, if you rewind the clock a bunch of years, these are just like fundamental things that I didn't have the tools to answer, hence my journey to Driveline. And now that same pathway is available to everybody, whether you're on a Driveline Academy team or not, through our youth assessments. So you come in, and if you're a local person, you come in and just do a one-day assessment, and we can collect some information about how do you throw, how do you hit, and how do you produce force. And I think that force production thing is the one thing that we really need to underline, because athleticism is the thing that can be developed. And athleticism defines like the underlying capacity for expression of skill. So think about baseball-specific skills: throwing a ball, moving a bat, fielding a ground ball, sprinting to a bag, etc. But we don't really have a lot of clarity about what athletic performance even looks like and how you measure it, and then also how to improve it. That's one of the strongest deliverables you're going to get, and the benefits of being able to come down and do a youth assessment. So one-day youth assessments, if you're in the local area, you come in, you're going to spend like 90 minutes and be able to get all access to this information and a breakdown from one of our trainers. If you are not local, we now have a 3-day package for you to come in, where you come in, you're going to kind of do an assessment, but it's a 3-day experience in the gym. So for old school friends of the program, like my brother Jordan Baltimore out in New York, like Evan, one of my guys from way back in the days, were asking me for years about like, hey, if my kid wants to just come in and fly to a Driveline facility, can I have like a 3-day thing? Yes, we have that now. My bad for it taking so long, but we have a thing right now, in addition to in-gym training and other stuff that we have, again, for youth, even if you're not going to be on one of our academy teams, so whether that's Arizona, Florida, or Washington, we got options for you, whether you're local to those markets, we're going to fly to one of those locations, or if you're local enough you want to train continuously, we got new options. So, drivelinebaseball.com. Support at drivelinebaseball.com is the email, or you can call us at 425-523-4030. 425-523-4030. Point being that we just have stuff for you if you want to get some signal about, like, is my kid good or not? What do they need to do to improve in a quantifiable fashion? We can help you answer those type of questions. Holler at us, drivelinebaseball.com. Housekeeping, Finney. Man, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And I, first of all, having suffered through, and I will say the word suffer, through the most chaotic World Series that I can recall of my lifetime, I did find myself often watching the games and thinking about like how these moments in the game are actually highly relevant to youth baseball, and whether that's signal that I would want to send to youth coaches or what kids I would want them to take some signal away from the game. So I thought, why don't we just break it down? And what I am going to focus on is in that Game 7, because Game 7, obviously the crucible of the entire experience, and that's not to say that there weren't a bunch of crazy moments that led up to Game 7, but I thought it was interesting that there's so many hypercritical moments that are emblematic or representative or relevant of things that we find in youth baseball, all encapsulated in one stupid game. And not only one stupid game, but one stupid game where, man, you've got entire franchises and players' legacies that are being decided in real time to a degree. I think about a guy like Clayton Kershaw, right? Look, and I want to acknowledge first of all that I feel like some of this is my fault, because if you rewind to last episode, I did make a little pithy comment about how the Dodgers were going to steamroll the Jays, that I thought often about while I'm sitting on my couch, sick to my stomach, literally sick to my stomach, watching my beloved Dodgers embroiled in one of the most hard-fought, and again, I just want to keep coming back to this word chaotic, games of baseball that I've ever seen, much less a chaotic game of baseball that's a Game 7 in extra innings in the World Series. I feel like some of this is my fault because of my pithy little jab that might have been sent towards some of my homeboys, and definitely my brother, who's a huge Jays fan. But I digress. You're seeing people's legacies being defined in real time. And when you think about somebody like Clayton Kershaw, look, big Dodger guy, so obviously I believe that Clayton Kershaw is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Even if you are not a Dodger fan, I would hope that you can see from an unbiased perspective how truthful that is, that Clayton is just a first ballot Hall of Famer. But beyond that point, I think there was a little bit of a thought, because his career went so deep before he got a World Series, that maybe he's just like a Hall of Very Good guy, or maybe he is a Felix Hernandez type, where you're applauding this phenomenal career achievements that never resolve themselves in the type of team success that is relevant when you're talking about making the Hall of Flippin' Fame, right? And I totally and completely understand that. So Clayton gets the first one in the COVID year, right? People are going to talk trash about, that particular season, what it meant to get through those playoffs. Big shocker. I land on the side of people who think that what the Dodgers did during the COVID year actually makes it a little bit more special, but I digress. I will fully cop to the fact that some of that may be influenced by my rabid Dodger fandom. Okay, fine. They get the series last year. Clayton, not as much of as a high leverage guy in that particular series. Had some moments, right? Had moments, but definitely not to the degree that I think he would have had previously in his career. And then you end up in that Game 6, and I will be honest that to whatever degree I was sick to my stomach with anxiety watching Game 7, some of that started in Game 6 with the entire season on the balance. The season kind of blowing in the wind, and you had to go to Kershaw out of the pen. And, man, the fact that he was able to get that third out and walk off of there and to keep the game going, I don't know, man. What more could you ask for a guy's career, right? He's given you everything he possibly can from a starting pitcher standpoint, and then converts to a reliever to a degree because of a number of issues, but he just doesn't have – he has enough to still get you outs in that moment. To be able to get that out in that moment, I don't know how he felt. I can tell you how I felt, that there was definitely a weight that fell off of my heart seeing him walk off that field getting that third out in Game 6. But to fast forward to Game 7, I do think that you can kind of start with these moments within that game that are very much relevant to youth baseball with Shohei Ohtani. And again, Huge shocker here. Personally, I think he's the greatest baseball player of all time. Pretty sure last episode we talked a little bit about this, but like, if you look at how he performs just on one side of the ball, right, whether as a hitter or as a pitcher, he's already just in rarefied air. When you combine those two things, you're just the GOAT. Who else do you comp him to? I'm being serious. Like, who do you comp him to in baseball history? Had this conversation with my son in the car, and he was like, well, you can't comp him to Babe Ruth, right? Yes, absolutely, right? Absolutely, because Babe Ruth at one point was a pitcher for the Red Sox before he moved over to the Yankees, and I'm not the biggest Babe Ruth guy. If I had a vast repository of baseball factoids about Babe Ruth, I think at some point they have been discarded along the way. But it's not like when you're thinking about the Murderers Row Yankees lineup and how Ruth was integral to that team that you were also thinking about him throwing 6 to 9 innings. Right? Babe Ruth was just a hitter by that point. He was no longer a weapon on the pitching side. Shohei is moving into the prime of his career doing both of those things. And I think you just have to wrap your head around the fact that that is a 1,000,000,000 outcome. And that's who he is right now. However, what does it say about how difficult this stupid game that we love is? That guy, in that phase of his career, who definitely has dreamed about what he did, getting an opportunity to start and pitch Game 7 of a World Series and also hit it in that same lineup. There's no way he hasn't been dreaming about that since he was a child. And you know the one thing I guarantee you he did not dream about was giving up a 3-run dinger to Bo Bichette. Definitely, you don't dream that part, right? You don't dream that part. You dream about the success. You dream about the manifestation of all this work and time and obsession you've put into this thing resolving itself and you having this triumphant moment. From pitch number 1, Shohei's stuff appeared to be a little bit off, and it's certainly not my place to prognosticate about why. Don't have enough information, don't have enough details, and I'm very confident that there are other people on the Dodger staff that'd be able to have that conversation. But the thing I will say is that it was very clear early on that, like, kind of couldn't find the breaking stuff, which backs you into this little corner about with some of your weapons not being able to be effective on this day for whatever the reason. How do you respond? How do you find a way to compete when you don't have your best stuff? So he goes out there and he battles, man. And he battles for, 3? And then gives up the dinger from Bo Bichette and immediately gets yanked. And so I'm watching the start of the game with my family, and I'm talking to him about, like, you watch him in those first warm-up pitches, because I think he ended top 1 being on third base. So he has to come into the dugout, change his stuff, get back on the bump, and of course, the commentators are going on about whether they should allow him to get the amount of additional time necessary to warm up. And like, the thing about baseball is that we don't play it relative to a flipping clock. And here I'm sitting on my couch watching the game, and you have people, commentators, national commentators, some of whom I have mentioned on this podcast before, and not the most glowing terms, talking about, like, oh, well, she just telling me it just has to go. For what? For what? The game is done when it's done. You get 27 outs, and that's when a game of baseball is over. So I could care less if it takes a couple minutes for Shohei to come off of a bag, put on his pitching stuff, and get out to the bump and get warmed up. I digress. Anyways, I'm watching him warm up, and I said to Danny, I was like, does he look like he's, like, ready to go out and have all this pressure? You're Shohei Ohtani. Everybody on the planet thinks that you're mostly the GOAT. You're doing unprecedented things. But that reputation doesn't mean anything in this competitive moment, because in this competitive moment, the job is to execute. And if you can't execute, well, guess what? You're not the dude anymore. And there are other guys who've had great careers who have not been able to successfully execute in some of these big leverage moments, and we judge their careers because of it. So there's Shohei Ohtani, just comes off at third base, getting onto the bump, throwing his warm-up pitches, and he just looks as loose as can be. And I'm like, can you imagine the mindset? Can you imagine the mindset? And then he goes out, struggles with the breaking pitch. Maybe looked a little bit frustrated, not my place to see, but like still found a way to compete his tail off without kind of having all of his weapons in his arsenal be as effective as they otherwise would be. And you can talk about that being short rest. You can talk about him, coming back from injury. I mean, whatever. Again, it's beyond my pay grade. But I think the way that he appeared to mentally and emotionally compete throughout that game as a pitcher was really impressive to me, given the stakes and given he just didn't have all his best stuff, point blank. And then you give up the 3-run dinger to Bo Bichette. Gets pulled immediately. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, we still need this guy in the lineup. How's this going to look? And from that point, when it doesn't go the way that you dreamed, I think it's a really commendable thing, regardless of whether Shohei Ohtani is a Dodger or not, thankful that he is, to be able to go out in a moment that you dreamed of, have it fall short of your dream, and be able to put that in its proper context so that you can still go out and compete your tail off as a hitter. That's special. That's special. During the previous series, I think I did make a comment on socials that, like, I think this was in the game that he started. No, it was like game 2 that he started against the Jays. Whatever. His first start against the Jays, where he goes 6, 9 punchies and 2 dingers in the same game. I said something on social that, like, sure, he has all the ability in the world to be able to execute in these type of moments. It just, you're a space alien. You're not normal. And I still stand by that. But I'll go one level deeper to say that, like, to be in that moment, it's much more interesting to me to see someone like that fail and then find a way to continue to compete and contribute to a team victory in the wake of that failure. That's special. That's special. What other starting pitcher can we think of who, in a World Series, came out, didn't perform well, I wouldn't say got shelled, but it didn't go the way that you dreamed, and then, like, comes back and takes positive ABs that, to a degree, are relevant to how you continue to stay in this game, claw back from a deficit, and then eventually win in extra innings? Who else? I'm not a baseball historian, so if you got somebody, let me know, but I can't think of anybody else. And the fact that it came in the wake of that type of failure or lack of ideal outcome on that type of stage is just, it's special to a degree that I don't think gets enough attention. So the first takeaway that I would say for any player that is either youth or high school, or a coach or a parent, is what are the type of signals that we need to send? Or for your athletes, how do we apply these things in context to allow us to get to that point? To fail on the grandest stage and show back up and find a way to compete. It's not accidental. There's no way it's accidental. It's intentional. That guy had to intentionally put the pieces back together, understand, hey, I let myself down, I let my team down, I didn't perform the way that I want, but the game is not over yet, and I have an opportunity to still positively contribute, so that's what I'm going to focus on. The amount of mental discipline, the amount of emotional discipline it takes to land at that place, here's what I'll say. It's really, really special, but it's trainable. It's absolutely trainable. So a question that I think all of us should consider is, if I'm actively coaching right now, or I'm still parenting somebody in youth baseball right now, are there things that I am doing to send signals to my athletes to help them navigate these type of things, to help them navigate 2 concepts? I'm going to fail, and I still have another opportunity to compete. What do we need to tell them? Well, one thing we need to tell them is that, like, the past is the past. Talked about the movie Tenet, I think, last weekend, or last episode of the pod. What's happened. Mental and emotional energy spent on things that have already occurred are not serving us. Young athletes, as discussed ad nauseum on this podcast, and I'm going to keep banging this drum, are highly inclined to obsess upon these type of failures because they feel that, like, the failure ends up being like definitive to their own sense of self and their own character and their own capacity to compete in this game. Even if that is their base state relative to, again, this is the Jean Piaget formal operational stage, concrete operational stage, differences in cognitive ability, et cetera, et cetera. If you want more detail on that, go. It's there's the Skills to Skill book. So great, you can't see it in the frame, but anyways, it's back there. Skills to Skill Complete Youth Baseball Training Manual. I wrote it. It's pretty good. Even if a child's base state or any youth athlete's base state is going to be getting obsessive about the result that has happened in the past, we as parents and coaches can still send signal to attune them to this idea that, like, the game is not over. And that's the great thing about about baseball. The game is not over. It's done when it's done. Whether we have to get 18 outs or 21 outs or 27 outs, whatever level of the game that we have, so long as that last out is not been recorded yet, we have an opportunity to compete. In order to do that, we have to stay focused in the present, not the past. And I would offer that whether your kid is a Shohei Ohtani fan or not, whether your kid is a Dodger fan or not, you should show them those two things. You should show them Shohei Ohtani warming up. You should show them Shohei Ohtani giving up the digger to Bo Bichette. And you should show them, I guess, a third thing, which is how he competed in the at-bats that took place after that moment. There's some signal there. And I think the greatest thing about this, again, is the fact that this is not trainable, okay? There are things that Shohei Ohtani can do relative to genetics and his training history, etc., that your child cannot do. But the thing that your child can do is to be gently pushed and gently supported from you as the coach or the parent to understand that thing. What's happened. Our next competitive moment is the thing we want to direct our energy and attention and focus towards. It's a trainable thing. I think the other thing we got to talk about is Miguel Rojas. Van Cleef necklace notwithstanding. I hope they're paying him money for that. The guy had, like, it was his second hit in a month. And look, and I've seen people say this both ways. I've seen people say, oh, he was sitting slider. I don't know that I buy that. That looked to be, I'm not sitting slider. I know that that's going to be a strike. I have to be adjustable enough to try to get something off productive to just make flush contact with this ball, and hits a game-time dinger to keep the game going in the ninth. Unreal. Unreal moment and an unexpected moment. But again, there is a signal here that we can extrapolate that I think is relevant to youth athletes, which is kind of doubling down on the same point as Shohei Ohtani, right? Shohei's thing was like, hey, you've dreamed about this moment. You've dreamed about being able to pitch in Game 7 of World Series, and you just left with your team down 3-0 because the runs are on you. Okay. Shohei found a way to still compete through that in the same game. Extrapolate that against Miguel Rojas. One hit in a month prior to the dinger? If your child this summer gets one hit over the course of a month, the odds that you are going to have to deal with some conversation that sounds a little bit like, I hate baseball, I don't want to do this, I'm not that good, this makes me feel crappy, very, 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 very high. Now, the difference between Miguel Rojas and your child, or you as an athlete, if you happen to be one of the small selection of kids, youth, high school, or otherwise that listen to this podcast, the difference between you guys is that, like, Miguel Rojas gets paid regardless, right? He's already gone to the promised land. He's already, again, he's space alien status because he is part of that 0.00262% of all human beings. between 1977 when I was born and now that has played not only one game of Major League Baseball, but like has a Major League Baseball career. So I will grant that there is not some direct parallels in that aspect. However, the fact that he's getting paid doesn't matter when he's making a decision or not to swing at that slider. The fact that he's had an established Major League Baseball career, which, as I understand, he is now going to retire from, that doesn't matter. What matters is his ability to have and harness a competitive mindset in that moment. Hey, it's Game 7 of the World Series, and Dave Roberts, for God knows what reason, decided that you were going to get a starting spot. It was worth it to have you in this lineup. And you find a way to do that? Your second hit in a month? And you didn't go up to the plate broken, dejected, presuming that this was going to be another bad AB, bad swings, bad swing decisions, bad outcomes? Certainly, when you're talking about kids, I don't know, I guess what's a way to say it? Their emotional volatility, right? Their emotional volatility is going to make it more likely that if they don't get a hit for a month, that they are going to express those same feelings that we just talked about, right? This does not make me feel good. This experience feels emotionally unsafe is probably is like the meat of what they're going to say to you. So the question is it like, well, you certainly can't wait a month to triage this, right? You absolutely can't. And when you have these opportunities to triage along the way, I think that the interesting thing is like, well, what signal can you send? And what learning opportunities are there and growth opportunities are there for you to communicate to that kid that like, hey, we might have gone an 0 for 3 again for today, but this 0 for 3 was different than the last. And so long as the 0 for 3 is different from the last, what does that indicate? It indicates we're learning. It indicates that something is changing. Now, the direction of that change may not be unilaterally positive every single time. There might be highs and lows. But these kids are going to need somebody in the form of us parents and us coaches to communicate to them that like, hey, you could put up another 0 for 3 today, and we're still on this path towards learning and growth. We're still on this path towards the performance that we want to have. The consistency with which we are able to harness and make something positive of the signal that we're getting from competition and the opportunities that we are affording ourselves to learn is going to be, I think, the differentiator between is my kid getting pulled in this direction of this sport is emotionally dangerous to me and I don't want to compete, or I'm still learning. I'm still learning and I'm still growing. And I understand, maybe not innately, right? Maybe not innately in a way that like it's going to voluntarily come from a child to say, oh yeah, no, I understand that today's 0 for 3 was like not emotionally dangerous, right? Probably not going to get that from them. They can get it from us. They can get it from us. Now, you go over the month in youth baseball, I would imagine that once we go like 0 for the week or 0 for maybe 2 weeks, probably a great opportunity to start trying to break things down. So I will stray a little bit from the World Series side to like, well, what does that mean? What I mean by breaking things down is understanding where non-ideal performance as a hitter comes from is like breaking down what's going on. And the first thing is like some combination of, are we swinging at hittable pitches and are we on time? And any conversation about hitting with a youth to high school hitter, if you're not starting there, I got questions about whether we are attacking things that are actually probably the underlying root cause. Now, that doesn't mean that there might be any number of mechanical things underneath this lack of performance, right? But if we're talking about youth baseball and you go over for like 2 weeks, it's probably not because the defenses that you're playing against are like all world beaters. You've probably seeing some hittable pitches. And you're probably not executing against those hittable pitches. So again, if you understand that because you're getting hittable pitches, and you understand that you're getting pitches that you should be able to handle, the question is, well, why? And to me, it's going to come back to those two things. Are we swinging at hittable pitches? Do we even know what those look like? I guess let's double back down. Are we seeing the ball well enough to understand what hittable pitches look like? Do we have an approach? Paired with that, are we on time? And I guess it's all kind of rolled up in the same general ball of wax, right? You want to have some type of like age-appropriate approach at the plate, which to me should generally be hunt the heater. Fastball is going to be the easiest pitch to hit most of the time. So the question number one is, do we have an approach where we are hunting heaters, right? And assuming that you're old enough to be in a level where you're seeing both straight fastballs and some amount of breaking stuff. If we're talking about, I don't know, let's call it like an 11 under kids, are we swinging at hittable pitches? Do we know what those look like? 11 and unders, they might not know what hittable pitches look like. So, okay, fine. Take that as training stimulus. So you can have some go, no-go rounds. Whether that's flips, whether that's side soft, whether that's actual live arm, let's show them both. Hey, I'm going to show you 4 straight fastballs. If I was doing this off a machine, this would be really easy, right? I'm going to show you 4 straight fastballs that are in the zone. My expectation is you're going to get a swing off on all 4 of those fastballs. And I'm going to start to engage with this idea that, like, I need you to hunt the hittable stuff aggressively. The second thing I'm going to show you is, okay, well, this is the stuff that we generally don't want to try to offer at with less than 2 strikes. Fastballs down and away, top shelf heaters, stuff 6 inches off the plate. They might need to see both of those things. So you might have a 4-and-4 round. 4 hittable heaters, 4 garbage pitches. So the intention is aggressively hunt those first 4, lay off the back 4. Maybe we do that for a round or 2. Second round, well, now we're going to mix it up. And whether I'm doing this live arm, whether I'm doing this machine, whether I'm doing this side soft or whatever, mix it up for them and intentionally throw them stuff that you don't want them to swing at, because you got to start engaging that child in the perceptual decision-making process of identifying one thing from the other. So you can do it in a blocked fashion, right? Blocked meaning here's 4 heaters to hunt, here's 4 pitches to lay off, or you could do it random. Heater, junk, 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 heater, heater, junk, heater, junk. However you want to mix up that sequence, right? But the point being that, like, if your kid is going 0 for a week or 0 for a weekend, the first conversation you need to have, and I'm sorry, I'm like, I don't try to be this just kind of black and white with it, but if you are 18 and under, the first conversation you have, if you have a long sample size of a lack of success, is that conversation. Are we swinging at hittable pitches, and are we on time? And it's all kind of boiled into the same ball of wax about what does our approach look like. Those are the conversation you need to have. Is there mechanical stuff going on that might be inhibiting performance? Sure. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I would expect that to be the case with younger athletes, because children, everybody say it together, are not small adults, the chorus says, right? Kids aren't small adults. So let's have an age-appropriate expectation of how these kids can perform mechanically. Doesn't mean that they don't have mechanical stuff to clean up, but the highest leverage that you have about improving your kid's hitting performance or improving your youth team's hitting performance is all wrapped up in those 2 things. Are we on time? Are we swinging at hittable pitches? That should be the majority of your focus. It's like I had a good friend that sent me a message the other day about thick grip bats. It's like, hey, what do you got on this? And I was like, well, I have a decent understanding of training theory about thicker grip stuff for strength training, right? Like you're getting a little bit of increased forearm activation, a little bit maybe extra in the shoulders. And by doing so, you're kind of training that in a little bit of, you're training things like grip strength, which is again, influenced by forearm strength in like a non-sport specific fashion. Oh, okay. Like that's good. And what my buddy said is that he's like, hey, well, the reason I'm asking is because I was in a coaching clinic and somebody said to me, that the thick grip bat removes hand dominance from the swing and forces the hitter to leverage more of the body. And like what I told him is like, okay, prove that to me scientifically, because that should be a thing that you can prove scientifically, and I'll listen. However, if you've got a pushy swing and you have a set of pushy swing mechanics, that push is not just going to magically go away if you have a thick grip on the bat. Pushy swings are going to push, and they're going to push if they're swinging a twig, if they're swinging a bat, or if they're swinging a 45-pound Oli bar. They're going to push. So I got some questions. So again, the thing I was trying to help him understand is like, if there's some minor amount of sport-specific benefit to swinging a thick grip bat, I am super in on that idea if somebody can show it to me. However, in terms of like leverage and the things that you could have a kid train on that are going to give them a more significant and immediate increase in hitting performance, it's not going to be by swinging a thick grip bat, most likely. It is going to be move it fast and move it accurately, and tools and training implements and environments that are basically cultivating that. Weirdly, we sell these things, right? The youth underload smash bat, focus on swing accuracy. The youth power bat, focus on swing speed. Weirdly enough, it's almost like we try to only sell tools that are actually going to make you better. But I digress. So the Rojas thing, man, just unbelievable. But again, I really think that like, yeah, there's a whole conversation to be had about the adjustability to be able to find barrel on that pitch. But the more interesting thing for me, and I think the thing is relevant to youth players of any age, whether that's, I was going to say 9, but I realize some of us are out there playing like highly intense and competitive game schedules with like 6-year-olds now. So let's just say youth players under the age of 18. The primary conversation that you need to be having with these kids are what type of context are we sending them along the way as they're going through these type of struggles to keep them engaged in the activity and the action of learning and getting better. And the more that you can kind of get their heads attuned to that idea, the more that you can start to go, okay, well, now let's train it, right? Now let's work on it. Let's start to ask ourselves questions like, are we on time? Are we swinging at hittable pitches? And again, then putting those questions into training environments that are going to train those things. What does it look like to train timing? Around the world rounds, right? Pull middle oppo. Work it backwards, oppo middle pull. Try to find the timing that produce those type of batted balls. Or have just an all oppo round. Have an all pull round. Have an all middle round. That's a way that you can find that timing. Same thing on do we have an approach? Do you have an idea what hittable and non-hittable pitches look like? These are things that we can train, and you can do that in a block sense with a 4 and 4 hittable pitches, 4 junk, and where you can do it random, where it is a random assortment of hittable pitches and stuff that you want to lay off. And honestly, for that type of training, what I would do is I would probably just give a kid points for like not necessarily the outcome, but the swing decision. Start there. Hey, I'm going to give you 1 point for every swing decision that you make that I would grade as correct. So that means offering the stuff that we think we can find barrels on and laying off the stuff outside of the zone. And it's just 1 point for each one of those outcomes. So a take could be a point, or a swing decision could be a point, even if that swing decision doesn't result in the type of ideal contact we want. Well, we can move that as level 2. Level 2 is it's 1 point for the correct swing decision, 1 correct for the right batted ball outcome. Make sense? There's trainable things. And I think when you start to look at the performance of guys that are operating at this type of frequency and level, we have to be able to kind of ask this question of like, well, how do we get from here to there? I don't think it's innate for someone, regardless of their level of professionalism, regardless of how much they're getting paid to play the game. I don't think it's innate to struggle and scuffle like that for a month and still end up with a competitive mindset in Game 7 of a World Series. I think most people, if you put them in that type of experience, would do the thing that most people do, which is, I got no shot here. Why would I have any type of belief that I'm going to continue to perform? That I could perform in a way that got me to this place? Why would I believe that? An adult has the capacity to rationalize these type of things in a way that only adults can. Kids are going to need help, and that's where we as coaches and parents come in. And man, I think there's a lot there. Now, obviously, the big thing we got to talk about is Yamamoto. Certainly, the easiest thing to talk about is just like that is an all-timer level of World Series performance in a way that is just outlier of outliers. Break it down, right? World Series Game 2, 105 pitches, 9 innings, 1 earned, 8 Ks. World Series Game 6, 96 pitches, 6 innings, 1 earned, 6 Ks. And then the next day, 34 pitches, 2 2/3, no earned, 1 punchy. So I saw some stuff in the aftermath where the thought was, is it like we have this idea at the major league level that pitchers are less healthy. Like that's a thing that I've seen often, is there's kind of this presumption that like guys can't go long because of health reasons. And again, like we'll get into that on when we start talking about workload. Before we get there, however, I do think it's important to note that just because Yamamoto could do that successfully at that level of competition, at that phase in the year, to that degree of success, does not mean that this is just a thing that like, well, we should just have everybody throwing like this. I mean, why don't we just have guys in the pros throw? I mean, what's the number? 200 plus in a week. That should just be a thing that we do regularly. The point that I tried to make is like, you can't just speak workload capacity into an existence. It's just like, well, this is just a thing we want, so like we're just going to do it, right? Doesn't work that way. If your intention is to expand a kid, well, let me just say a player's workload capacity, the best way to do that is you have to track it. You have to value it. You have to give a crap of the idea that like workload is something to be monitored. And can you chart it and just like record it with pitch counts? Yes, that is one way that you can do it. But the best way to do it, assuming you don't have access to on-field biomechanics and things like Hawkeye, which I'm sure that the Dodgers and other Major League Baseball franchises have access to, is just with tools like Driveline Pulse. And I realize that I sound like a paid shill here, but the reality of the matter is, like, again, you can't just wish for systemic adaptation of chronic workload to get increased. That is not a thing that you can ask Santa for to get dropped in your Christmas stocking. Does not work that way. Hanukkah Harry is not delivering you workload capacity. What does is having a throwing program. What does is having a tool to track your workloads both in per session basis and over a longer period of time. And if there is something that does that other than Driveline Pulse, you tell me. Because I don't see it. Call me a paid shill if you want, but this isn't just a thing we can snap our fingers and expect all of our pitchers just be healthy and ready and capable from a health standpoint of safely getting through this type of workload. You can't just want it the most. Doesn't work that way. The adaptation to the athletic system and engine underneath to be able to do that and not have your elbow, your shoulder, your lat just full on and like self-immolate is you need a period of adaptation. You need to be able to drive that capacity up. And in that effort, you need to periodize along the way, because if all you do is just gas pedal the whole way, that ain't it either. Also worth noting that it's a heck of a lot easier to spike your chronic workload in the last game that you are going to play of your entire year, right? So what terrifies me is that someone is going to look at this pitching volume, right? Someone is going to look at this and go, yeah, no, my 12-year-old's good for that. We're good. Yamamoto did it. What's the problem? We got to be clear about the fact that there are physiological difference in the capacity of adults and children. So that's the first thing. Talk about growth plates. We can talk about immature UCLs. Again, I'm still waiting for someone to provide me any type of scientific evidence about this whole claim that the UCL does not mature until the age of 26 or whatever. I'm not being facetious here. I've seen the quotes. Those quotes come from people that are well respected in the industry. I want to know where that information came from. Was there a study? Was there research? Like, where is it? Up until then, I am going to be, I think, deservedly skeptical at that type of claim. I have a real, like, side eye for the idea that there's just, like, some arbitrary age. Like, yep, everybody's UCL just matures at the same magic spot. Because growth plates don't work that way. Hormones don't work that way. Tissue and tendon capacity, I don't think, works that way. So, anyways, point being that, like, you can't just look at the Yamamoto thing and just wish it to be so. If this is a thing that you care about for any age player, the idea of workload and an idea that, like, at a certain point of the year, you could put yourself in a place where you can safely have a higher workload capacity. That whole thing depends on the initial inception of believing that workload matters. And then beyond that, burning a couple calories, spending a couple dollars to actually track it. It's a thing you can do right now. The fact that we don't sell 1 million Driveline Pulses a year is largely, I think, a combination of two things. Not enough people understand that it exists, and not enough people care. We got a little under 15 million youth baseball players in this country basically every year. Definitely a smaller number of high school kids, but you got them, and you got college, you got pros too. Let's say the market is, just say the market's 20 million. All 20 million of those kids should have an age-appropriate awareness of how to develop their throwing workload. Pitching is necessary in our game. It's a skill that we can't get away on. It's a skill that we're highly reliant upon, and a disproportionately small percentage of players have to carry that burden. That configuration in and of itself is all the reason why this concept of workload, be it chronic workload, meaning the stuff that takes place over a longer period of time, your acute workload, the stuff that takes place on like a single day basis, these are concepts that we need to understand. And if you want to understand them in the form of adhering to something like MLB PitchSmart, that's fine. Is it perfect? No. But it's a good starting point. If you want to understand these concepts relative to quantifiable data that you can harness about your player right now with a tool like Driveline Pulse, probably a better path. You're going to have to burn a couple calories. It's not automatic. But neither is getting to this place from a workload standpoint. That isn't automatic either. You have to value it. You have to train it. You have to track it. And the thing that concerns me the most, right? And I guess this is one of those like late night tweets that I like kept in the drafts and I didn't fire off. The thing that worries me the most is that somebody's going to look at the way that Yamamoto was used in the series, and they are just going to go like, well, just more guys should just do that. And then they're just going to have guys do that. And then we're going to have high school coaches in March going like, well, yeah, I'm going to throw this kid 3 days a week. Yamamoto did it. Tomato, potato, man. And even if that's a thing that you could do, if you want any type of signal about whether or not that is appropriate or safe or healthy, you need tools. You can't eyeball it, right? This isn't an iSoto type of thing. Workload tracking doesn't work that way. Again, there is a ground level way that you could do it when it comes to like a single day basis of adhering to some type of constrainment for workload, which is what MLB PitchSmart is. That's one way to do it, but all you're doing is you're just keeping a kid under an arbitrary threshold for pitches, and you have zero signal about the actual workload effect of those pitches because they're not all the same. I can tell you that from the data. So you got to burn some calories to be able to understand this stuff. What else do we got? Just a couple more things here to finish. I think at the end of the day, the big thing that resonated for me, watching the series, and not only because I have like an emotional attachment to one of the teams in it, and I think this is relevant to kids, is that like, especially kids who are like starting to take this thing a little bit more serious, is you have to give them an acknowledgement that like, man, that like the thing that you're falling in love with is really hard. I think they need to know that. I think they need to be told that. This thing is so complex and nuanced and random and chaotic. And again, this World Series exemplified that in a way that I think not a lot of series have. It's so random, it's so chaotic, it's so nuanced that when you have these kids fall in love with the game at a young age, and they do the thing that I am sure that teenage Shohei Ohtani did, which is dream about pitching in Game 7 of a World Series, which is the thing that Miguel Rojas did, which is hit the tying home run in a World Series, which is the thing that Will Smith did, which is hitting the go-ahead home run in a World Series. I think kids get attached to these moments of grand success, and we want them to stay attached to that. I mean, I do. Like, I want a kid to be attached to searching for greatness. Not because I care that they achieve greatness within this game, but because I want them to understand that, like, I think you can be a more accomplished and a more successful human being in any endeavor if you have a commitment to try to be great. But weirdly, I think you also need something on the back end, again, especially for kids, to let them know that, like, this greatness thing doesn't come easy. It has to be earned. And it's going to be earned not through a path of continual successes and no setbacks. It's going to be earned through failure because you've chosen a hard thing. This thing it's so flippin' difficult. I'm sitting on the couch with my son, and I can't even remember which AB we were talking about, but it's like you miss it by a quarter of an inch, and your whole career's different. Do you understand how insane of a skill that is? Your release point is here and not here. That's the difference. Alejandro Kirk gets a little bit on top of that ball. Hits him in a game-ending double play. What's the difference there? A half an inch? A quarter of an inch? An eighth of a 16th? 7/30 seconds? I mean, it's so small. It's such a small difference. And I think because kids attune themselves to these moments of high success and they see like these big triumphs when everything goes right, I think sometimes they don't pay attention to the very, very small differences between going right and going wrong. We're wrapping up, getting close to wrapping up this athlete story on my son. And at the top end, there's a very significant feeling on my part that, like, I wonder if we should even do it. Because I know that, like, not everybody loves Driveline. And that's okay. Like, that's fine. You know, like, not everybody loved Ted Williams' approach to hitting. Not everybody, not everybody agrees on the right way to do this thing. And as a company in recent and past times, we have been upfront and aggressive and bombastic about the things we believe to be true. And that rubs some people the wrong way. And I suppose there's still like a little bit of this residual thing that, like, oh, those Driveline guys they're pricks or whatever. They're nerds and whatever. Caveat, and this is more personal than it is about Driveline, but caveat that as per usual, it is very interesting to me that when I see people in person in real life, the energy is real different. Whether that's national personalities that flex their Twitter fingers often and can't keep it a buck when they see you in real life, whether that's local people who want to pop off about ridiculous minutia about high school baseball that nobody gives a crap about. It's very interesting to me that like the energy is never the same when you're in the same space. But point being that like I had some concerns about putting Danny's journey up there. However, if he was anybody's kid but mine, we would have done this 3 years ago. Right? We would tell this story about the long-term effect of this thing that we do. And we would do it without any type of regard for are we putting a spotlight inappropriately, right? And the whole point of the story is just like, you got a kid that loves baseball a lot, and we've equipped him with some tools and given him a system to work in so he can push that as far as he wants to go. That's the point of the story, right? I sent some messages to some of our OG trainers this morning. Like, I need you for like a 30-second talking head quote. Just talk to me about like what were we doing for youth training back in the day? How did what we understand about performance at the highest level inform what we did for youth back then, and how is that still true today? But alongside that, to me, the more interesting part of this particular story about my son is that in my mind, I think whether he stopped playing baseball tomorrow or he gets to where he wants to go, this experience has taught him how to be a person in a way that I don't know where else you get this type of thing, man. Like, you know, I suppose maybe kids back in the day got it with like Boy Scouts and Eagle Scouts, right? I think sport allows you to teach it in a really resonant way. Baseball specifically doubles down on that whole thing because it only gets harder. It only gets harder. I'm talking to Travis Snyder this morning, and you know we're talking about this idea that like it never ends. You know, and like you could be looking at whatever the next thing is, right? Whatever the next thing is, whether that's your kid is trying to make their local all-star team, whether your kid wants to make a high school varsity team, whether they're trying to figure out like college offers or any of that type of stuff. You could check any one of those boxes and be satisfied for a very small amount of time, and then immediately after it's like, oh, then the next thing is coming, right? You make a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old all-star team. Wonderful. Congratulations. Savor that accomplishment because not everybody else gets there. But you know you're moving to 50-70 and then 54-80 and then 60-90 in like the next 24 months, right? Got to get ready. Oh, hey, like you made varsity on your high school team. Okay, cool. Are you going to hold that varsity spot over the next 2-3 years? Are you setting yourself in a position to be one of that 5% of all high school baseball players that goes on to play college? Oh, cool, you got committed to a college. Wonderful. You're already in rarefied air. You going to hold that roster spot through fall ball? It only gets more difficult. And I guess that the point that I'm making at the end of this, and as per usual, this is me belaboring a point. I think it is appropriate for us to acknowledge with our kids that this thing that they choose and this thing that we are trying to support their efforts through is really challenging. And it's challenging in a degree that like most sports are not. You know, like you're playing rec basketball as like a kid. What's a good shooting percentage? 50%. Your 11-year-old hits like 500 over the course of the summer and you're crowing. You go through your high school baseball season, you hit 500. You're crowing about it. Our game is hard, and we choose it because it's hard. We choose it because we love to do hard things. And I think that is a character trait that we can call out and we can appreciate and applaud with these kids who are making that type of choice. All right, I got one other thing to finish on that isn't related to the World Series. We got to talk a little bit about what's going on with the Players' Way. So if you're not up on the story, so Players' Way is basically like a youth baseball offset of the MLBPA, the Major League Baseball Players Association. There was an article that came out this week written by Don Van Natta Jr., who's an ESPN writer. I think he's a New York Times guy as well, about Players' Way being under investigation by federal authorities for a potential misappropriation of millions and millions of dollars. And as someone who is very passionate about the function of this industry of youth baseball and where we are pushing the game as a whole, pretty interesting thing to see come around my timeline. And the thing I said about it is like, look, whether you are talking about Players' Way or you're talking about any other institution that has an intention of doing good in this space, I gotta be honest that I don't think the job is that flippin' complicated. It really isn't. Specifically, if you are doing the thing that Players' Way is doing, or what I think has the capacity to do, which is leverage a very unique, a truly unique amount of name and attention-grabbing experience that just like, again, normal people, and I will firmly raise my hand and say that I am normal people that didn't play this game at the level, again, that this very, very small cohort of people end up doing. I think what you do is you have to leverage that influence first and if you actually care about the game, is you have to think about what are the things that we can extrapolate from this incredibly high-level experience that we can distill and pass down in an age-appropriate way that helps more kids. Okay, well, now we're talking about training and education, right? It should be an educational initiative. Now, one way that educational initiative can go is we argue about the minutiae. And often, when you think about some of the national commentators in our game and either the things that they say during the broadcast and the things that they say, when they're not in the booth, come down to the specifics of like, how do we make the ragu, right? What goes in there? How many Baileys are we using? Are we doing the Goodfellas thing, which I think is just basically a sham, right? The razor shaving and the garlic. That to me is a majority of that conversation that often takes place on socials. Is like, well, what's the right way to teach the swing? And like, man, if it wasn't going to create like auditory chaos, I just kind of want to bang my head into the microphone every time that I even think about having that conversation nowadays. I get it. I get it, right? Like you play the game. The game was taught one way. The game changes, and you see some of that change getting communicated at an age-appropriate level to younger kids, and you're concerned that these young kids are getting taught something that isn't going to get them the outcome that you want. So you grab your platform and you put your cell phone on a tripod and you demo your swing and you say, yeah, well, it might be looking like I'm swinging down, but I'm actually like knob to the ball and swinging up. And I don't know. Again, the whole conversation makes me want to give myself a lobotomy. I wouldn't do that. I have the best wife in the world. I have great kids. I love my job. Life is good. I understand that. But the thing that we could probably organize around is just like simpler things that are going to have more leverage. Nobody gives a crap about how we teach the swing because we're all going to probably disagree about it anyways. The thing that we could agree upon is like, what's good? Be immaterial about the mechanics of the swing. What's good? Well, line drives are more productive than ground balls. Can we just agree on that? Can we just agree on that? Can we just agree that like the core paradigm of training intention for a child between the ages of 4 and 14, 2 and 12, hit a line drive? Why can't we agree on that? So you do training in that regard. You do training about the things we just spent the last however many, an hour? However long we talked about. Teach kids a competitive mindset. Teach kids what it looks like to be able to hunt a hittable pitch. Teach kids how to have an age-appropriate focus on pairing command and velocity. These are things that Players Way or any other organization that has access to this type of personality could put forward in the ecosystem and do good. You could help training this next generation of youth coaches, youth parents, youth volunteers to be facilitators of an experience that helps them build skill and helps them build engagement at the same time. This is a thing that you could do with your position of influence. The other thing that you could do is you could help out these local leagues. They need it. Show me a little league that has a well-developed coach and parent volunteer training curriculum, and I will show you a successful little league. How many of them are actually solving that stuff in-house? How many of them have good systemic solutions to train a new crop of parent volunteers year after year after year in a way that is in line with the values and the skills that they as a league revolve around? Whatever that number is, it's not enough. And I think you could offer that all the other BS that we saw during the Little League World Series and the Softball World Series last year and all the scandal and all the controversy, and again, this isn't the first one, nor it will be the last time that that's popped up, would tell you that we don't have unified curriculum around those things. So if I'm running Players Way, that's the other thing that you do. You partner with these leagues, you help them get them tools. And because you've already developed coach and training curriculum, what do? You grab minor leaguers, you grab pro guys, you grab guys with experience who go talk to these parents and say, this is the path. And the bottom of our pyramid is not going to be arguing about whether we're swinging up or down on the goddamn baseball. It's not about whether you're keeping your front shoulder closed or open during the throwing motion. It's not about what we're doing with the glove side arm. It's about the experience that we are trying to communicate and the broad skills that actually matter. That's your foundation. And then the other thing you do, the icing on the cake, right, is if I'm Players Way, hey, man, we're going to run a national tournament. But you know what we're going to do? Because we're the Players Way, because we have all this money. I mean, we have enough money that it's kind of just like leaving out the door and we don't know where it's going. Find me 12 leagues that have highly compliant programs with what we're doing in terms of coach, parent, training, education, the experience we're cultivating, the experience that we want to facilitate. You find me 12 leagues that do that. And you send me 2 teams from each league, and I'm going to pay for you all to come to some national event. And we are going to celebrate, we're going to uplift what you are doing for this thing. And I'm going to say to everybody else, hey, do you want to do this thing? You want to get this free experience at wherever, where I'm going to pay for you to come. We're going to pay for flights. We're going to play to house you. You're going to pay to play a couple games and have some fun and do cool baseball stuff. And pro guys are going to be there, and minor league guys are going to be there. You want to do more of that? Be compliant. Cultivate the experience that we value. Show me that your retention year after year is good. Show me that you are bringing in new families to experience this wonderful and beautiful game that we believe can be transformative to the way that a young boy or a young girl understands themselves, understands the world, understands their capacity for growth and development. You show me that, and I will take 24 of your kids and I will fly them anywhere in the flipping country to go be a part of this experience. Because the next year, I want to do 24 leagues. I'm not saying that this is like my application to run Players Way, but I am saying that like when you have this type of position of influence, you have access to these type of resources, both in terms of personality and in terms of finance. There is a simple and smart way that you weaponize this for the growth of the game. And the path for that is not trying to cut into league apps. It's not trying to cut into their back-end action and trying to take a piece on the software side of player registrations. Who gives a crap? Make the game better. Train these parents and coaches to cultivate the love that keeps us in the game years and years and decades past the time that we start playing. That's where your energy should go. Don't try to carve a $2 slice of some player registration or parent registration money. Sorry, my apologies. I'm getting a little bit of inside youth baseball with some of this stuff. And I'm also getting fired up. So before I say anything that's going to put my own professional dignity in danger, I should probably wrap this thing up. Thank you guys, as per usual, for being here, for listening to me blather about all these things. Again, I just, hey man, we got 4 months until the season really starts, right? Like all of us are probably getting ready for March starts. We got 4 months. In those 4 months, talk about the Miguel Rojas at bat with your kids. Talk about Shohei Ohtani giving up the dinger to Bo Bichette with your kids. Talk about Yamamoto with your kids. There's a lot of positive signal that we can send from this, just these little microcosm moments in the game that I think can be strongly beneficial to the context that we impart to kids about the way that they think about their experiences that they have in this game. Are they all going to go play professional baseball because of it? No, who cares? They're going to go play college baseball because of it? No, who cares? Are we using baseball as a conduit to shape and transform the way that young men and women think about their lives and their own capacity for growth and development? That's the thing. That's the thing that I actually give a crap about. I think you can take this World Series, and whether you care about the Dodgers or not, there's a bunch of moments in that game that are going to allow you to push that type of perspective and context towards the kids that you're having experiences with and educating them right now. That's all I got. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week. I'll figure something out. I keep promising we need to bring on like third-party interviews so you guys don't have to keep listening to me blather week after week after week. That means I need to be able to spend more time to like line up guests, and that means I need to like carve back some of the other stuff that I'm doing on the Driveline side. But we're going to figure that out. We're going to figure it out. We're going to keep pushing because, again, that's what baseball taught me. Keep pushing. That's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me. My name is Deven. I'm down by law. I'll catch you next time. Honey, I love you. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.